Welcome to the No Broke Months for Salespeople podcast, the ultimate destination for salespeople, business people, and entrepreneurs. As you immerse yourself in this show, you'll discover the secrets to unlocking consistent and predictable income. We reveal the new way to persuade human behavior by mastering the art of the teach to sell method. Get ready to transform your approach and achieve unparalleled success.
Welcome to the No Broke Months podcast. My name is Dan Rochon. I help entrepreneurs, salespeople, and small business owners to have consistent and predictable income. Today, we got a co-host, Nick Krautter, who is the author of The Golden Handoff, which is about a book that is just celebrating their 10-year anniversary. And it's a book to talk to you about great client relationships and how they're worth just a fortune in the real estate business. But when agents retire, most of those fortunes are just lost until you read Nick's book, The Golden Handoff. So we'll talk more about that. But Nick is the host, and guess what? I have a very, very special guest today. Nick has a very special guest today. It's very near and dear to my heart. It is me, Dan Rochon. I'm the guest. Welcome, everyone. Nick, it's your show. Go for it, brother.
Dan, thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone for joining. This is one of my favorite podcast formats where you get to learn more about the host from someone who isn't the host. So thank you for picking me to be the guest host to talk to you about your book. This is a big deal, man. As someone who's written a couple books, and I know this isn't your first book as well, we know it takes a long time, and it's very hard and time consuming, and it's kind of like a lonely pursuit. You have to there's no AI. This is just the real deal. Sit down and write it. And I want to ask you my first question. Anytime someone writes a book, what inspired you to write this book at this moment in time?
Well, thank you for that question. And before I answer that question, I want to sort of expand on what you talked about writing a book being a lonely process. And this was my second book that I wrote, and the first one was Real Estate Evolution for real estate agents. This is written for salespeople. Teach to Sell: Why Top Salespeople Never Sell and What They Do Instead is written for salespeople, for entrepreneurs and small business people. And what I learned through the journey of writing that was that you really have got to be comfortable with yourself. You've got to be able to be happy with yourself, because the writing process is really an extension of your inner thoughts, your inner being. Sometimes that could be your inner conflict. And so I wrote the book as a roadmap because I see that so many salespeople, so many entrepreneurs, so many people are struggling in business.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's a shame. And I've been fortunate over the last 20 plus years, even much longer than that, to be able to analyze business, own businesses, and be able to put together the four pillars of a successful business. And that's what Teach to Sell is gonna bring to life within the salespeople community.
Awesome. Well, I've got a ton of notes here. I read the book. It's great. There's just so much people are going to take away, and I think everyone's going to get different value. But like you said, the foundation is in every aspect of the entrepreneurial journey of selling and then building a team and building an organization. The approach is, and starting to sell people or beg for business, you really understand people and teach them how to get what they want, and in every aspect of that process. And I think that's such a powerful message. And part one is believing yourself. It's interesting, when I put together an agent training for my brokerage, I started with mindset and I started with your calendar. Just kind of the most two basic things, because if you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to put in the work to do it. Why did you start with mindset and believing in yourself as the starting point for this book?
Well, it's the foundation. And as you mentioned, if you don't have a belief in yourself, that unstoppable business mindset, then it's going to be, I wouldn't even say hard to succeed in as an entrepreneur. It will be impossible. Unless you get really lucky. There is luck that's involved in maybe you got a relationship to help you or whatever the case may be, but it's going to be damn near impossible for you to succeed if you don't first believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when I got my license as a new agent, I went 6 months without a single sale. Zero, I was drowning, right? And so it wasn't until I cracked the code of how do I attract clients to me?
Yeah.
When I discovered Teach to Sell, before I was able to start having some faith in myself. So I've been there where it's like, my goodness, this is challenging. And in fact, the demon of the book, if throughout the entire journey of the book, the demon, the antagonist is that thought of not good enough, not
Yeah.
worthy. That thing that whispers in your ear that says, man, are you sure about this? And so, that's really the demon of the book, and sitting there saying, how do you conquer that demon? Because even as we go through the book and talking about belief, and then it builds on that into lead generation, and then build an organization and leadership. But throughout that, you still have got to believe in yourself, because that's the foundation of your success.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk about some of the I'm going to get the nitty gritty. So one of your tools you teach in this is the GPS, goal, path, steps. How do you recommend people use this? Tell me just kind of the gist of how this works.
So let me tell you sort of the background of that. So there was a story. I don't know if it's true or not, honestly, but I did do the research on it. I think it's true. And, there's research that says it's true, that Mike Flint, who was a pilot for Warren Buffett, and one day he's his private airplane pilot. And one day Warren goes to Mike Flint. He says, hey, the fact that you're still working for me tells me that, I haven't done my job. And, if they just sort of, adjustful. And so Mike says, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, write down 25 things that you want to achieve in your life and come back to me tomorrow. And he goes home, he does the exercise, comes back. Okay, what's next? And then Warren says to Mike, cross out 20 of those things and never look at them again until you get one of those 5 things that are left.
Yeah.
And so that was really about discovering, to sit there and say, sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
And if you have, too many things to focus on, then it's really, really hard to be effective. And so that was like the foundation of how do we create a tool to allow for the reader, for the user to be able to say, how do I, now that I know, okay, less is more, now what is the vital things that I want to be able to accomplish? And so the GPS breaks it down into what's your one goal, what's the outcome that you want to be able to create. Whatever that outcome is, now what are the 3 pathways to be able to achieve it? So for example, let's say you are an insurance salesperson, and you want to be able to sell 10 transactions this month. So your goal would be to write 10 policies.
Yeah.
My pathways to be able to get there is maybe I'm going to find new people through, online marketing, maybe through networking, maybe through cold calling. And so those would be your 3 pathways. And then each one of those pathways, then you have a step. In fact, it's 5 steps. So it's sitting there saying, okay, so what are the 5 steps that I have to take to be able to network? Well, I've got to identify where I'm going to network. I've got to identify who I want to communicate with. I've got to identify who's a potential prospect for me. Those are 3 of the 5 steps that you would have in there. And so it's a tool to allow for you to really get clarity on not just get rid of the noise of all the million things that can vie for your attention, but then to then define it as what's the most vital, and then give you a tool to be able to know exactly what's a step-by-step to achieve it.
Now you talk about focusing on one goal, and I always question this for myself and for other people, because obviously, there's more than one thing in your life, right? In every day, there's more than, one thing you have to do and achieve. How do you schedule that, or how do you block that? Because obviously, I'm sure, you have a goal of being a good father, of your health, of, inspiring others, finishing this book. How do you kind of manage the truth that you have more than one goal in life at any given moment?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nick. So it's about understanding, like, where are your priority zones, right? So, business is just one priority. Spiritual relationships, like your spiritual connection with your God or whoever you may believe in. Your relationships with your family, like my relationship with my daughter. Your relationship with your health, with your mental health, your physical health. There's all these different components that are important. So for me, it's about taking my calendar and putting the big rocks in first. Because if you can imagine, if you have a mason jar, and if you put in the big rocks, then you can, fill it with pebbles, and you can fill it with sand, and you have more of a capacity. But if you put the sand in first and then the pebbles and then the big rocks, it's going to overflow off the top. So sitting there saying, well, what are my big rocks? Well, for me, my physical big rocks are for me to go to the gym every day. My physical big rocks are for me to really just take on my app on my phone and just log what I eat.
Yeah.
I do those two things, I stay pretty physically fit.
Right.
Okay. And so if you look at my calendar right now, you're going to see go to the gym, and it's on there 7 days a week. Now I only go to the gym 5 days a week. So I allow for myself just to like today, I'm going to miss my gym time because my daughter's got a doctor's appointment. For me, that's more important than the gym. It's like,
Right.
it's like you sort of move things around. But again, she's not going to have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. So guess what? Tomorrow I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So it's really about putting what's your highest focus activities, whether that be in business, in sales, in business ownership, or any aspect of your personal life, and putting that on your calendar first, and then understanding that life is never going to be balanced.
Yeah.
I look at life as counterbalanced, right? So there's
Yeah.
times in life where I'm like 100% all in on chilling and being on vacation. Like I'm completely fine with not working. And then there's times in my life that I'm 100% all in on producing, writing a book, or doing sales, or leading a business, or recruiting and attracting great people to my organizations. And so it's understanding that there's not going to be a day where it's like I'm going to do 20% of this and 20% of this and 20% of this, and there's 5 different things that's going to be perfectly balanced. No, it's more like I'm going to do 110% of this, and tomorrow I'll do 110% of that. And it's sort of a yin and a yang to go back and forth. That's been my experience, at least.
So just kind of, while you're working on it, be focused on that thing, whether that's relaxation, family, your gym, or work. So just
Wherever you are, be there.
I love
Wherever
it.
you
Okay.
are, be there. Yep.
There's 2 things you talk about in this book that I absolutely love, and I think people are going to really be able to implement. And I want to talk a little bit about both of them. One of them is pre-decide. I absolutely love this idea that don't wait until the event happens. It's going to make you think about your decision, but to kind of think about it in advance. I think that really reduces stress. I think it gives you better clarity, so you're not trying to do something in the heat of the moment. Give me an example of how you pre-decide and
Sure.
how you recommend the readers use this tool.
Yeah. So throughout the book, there's a pre-decision compass in each chapter, and then there's also a call to commit or quit.
Yeah.
And so the way that the book is structured, it's structured in a way to give you some advice, give you some guidance, lead you through whatever the topic is, whether that's on belief in yourself or lead generation or building an organization or leadership. And now it's going to give you tangible, like step by step on how to be able to achieve that.
Yeah.
Then here's a pre-decision compass that you could choose. So an example of that, when I was once upon a time leading a really large organization, I had about 150 people who worked for me. I guess for some people that may not be large. For me, that was large. And what I recognized was that there was times when I would have a player, a team member, come up to me, and they would want something that was in their best interest. That's perfectly natural. We all want what's in our best interest.
Right.
But what I learned as a leader was that sometimes what one person wants that's in their best interest may contrast with what other people want, and there may be a little bit of a conflict between the two.
Yeah.
And so I made a pre-decision compass based off of experience, based off of being in that place. Like, oh, what do I do here?
Yeah.
I've got Johnny here, who's a great team player, and then I got Sally, Joe, and Jose over here, who are average team players. So how do I decide, between the 4 of them in that example?
Right.
What I learned was, unless if it's a all-star player, I go with what's best for the team.
Right.
Now, if you're a football fan, and if you're not, then just Google this guy, Tom Brady. If I have a Tom Brady on the team, I'm going to do what Tom wants to do.
Right.
Why am I going to do what Tom wants to do? Because he is one out of thousands of NFL football players that has reached the level of where so you're talking about the best of the best of the best of the best. He's better than that.
Yeah.
And so it'd have to be that sort of quality for me to sit there and say, well, maybe because I've got a once in a lifetime talent here, then, I can sit there and I could say, well, my pre-decision is I'm going to actually consider that as a part of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that I pre-decided on before I'm faced with the decision, I already know what the answer is going to be.
Great. You mentioned commit or quit, and my question to you on that, and I think that's also a really good clarifying question you put into every chapter. When do you ask yourself this? Like, what is the like? When does this come up in the day to day for you?
I don't have my relationship with quit is non-existent. Um, I got a sign on my board behind it. It says never, never, never give up.
Yeah.
And I joke sometimes that on the back of it, took a Sharpie. I didn't actually do this, but I should. And on the back of it, I joke to say on the back of it, it says, unless if you should. So never, never, never give up unless if you should, right? So for me, my challenge is I'm sometimes not willing to give up when I should.
Yeah.
Now that trait has allowed for me to have business success, but it's also, challenged me with business, setbacks as well, because when I'm in something that's failing, I'm going to figure it out. Right. So I guess the answer to that is I would quit only after the fact. I would quit really if I'm not having fun. I mean, if I'm not having fun, it's because I'm not having success. And if
Sure.
I'm not having success, it's because there's no way to create the success, at least no way I can create the success. Because if there is, I'm going to freaking figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's, but it's rare that I will quit.
Yeah. I love it. For me, I look at it as, whenever you're asked if you want to do something or you're thinking about how you want to spend your time in life and business, to me, it's really critical. And this fits with what you're doing is, you either commit to do it or you say no.
Yeah.
I think too often we say we want to do something because we think we should do it or other people are doing it and maybe it is a good idea and maybe it does work, but it isn't the right thing at the right time for you, or you just don't want to do it. If you're successful enough in life, you get to a point where you get to choose what you do. You're not forced to, I have to hit my quota this month, because you've already hit it so many times. You've kind of reached what I call exit velocity, and now you're financially free. But those are two great tools I think people are going to really get a lot of value at. All right, part 2, lead gen. I'm glad you put this in there. So neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. This is something I've done a little bit with. I am in no way an expert. I know you've got a lot more experience with this. Give everyone kind of the elevator pitch on what this is and how you use it, and maybe a way to go deeper into it. So I know you talk about it, but this is a big idea that takes
Yeah.
time and skill to learn, and I do think there's value to it. So let's
Well,
what is it? How do you use it? And where would someone go to like dig deeper?
Yeah. Well, if you want to dig deeper, you want to learn about it, there's a really fantastic book called Teach to Sell: Why Top Salespeople Never Sell and What They Do Instead. That's a great opportunity for you to learn more about it. But what you're asking me about is called neuro-linguistic programming, which was
Yeah.
developed in the 1970s by two PhDs, Dr. Grinder and Dr. Bandler, and they and Virginia, forgetting Virginia's last name. So she was a girlfriend of one of them. And so anyway, so it's about the study of excellence, and it's about the study of objective experience. And so there's a thing in the book that I go through called the self-coaching model. And what the self-coaching model is, and I'll go through it briefly, is that your circumstance that you observe through your senses, you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, and you feel. Your circumstance, something's happening. You're listening to this right now, or maybe you're watching this on video, and that's the circumstance. And then you're going to have a thought from that circumstance. So your circumstance leads to your thought. Maybe your thought is, this is really valuable. And maybe your thought is, I don't know, whatever it may be. And then from that thought, you have a feeling. So there's a circumstance, you observe it through your senses, you have a thought about that circumstance, and then you have a feeling. If that feeling's a positive feeling, then guess what? You're probably going to then take positive action, because that's the next step. If it's a negative feeling, then you're probably going to take negative action. So it goes back to circumstance, to thought, to feeling, to action. And then from there, you get a result. And whatever that result may be, if you do a positive action, then it's probably going to be a positive result. If you do a negative action, it's probably going to be a negative result. I've got a 15-year-old daughter right now. Trust me, this is a conversation we have often.
Yeah.
All right. So if you understand all that, right? So it's the circumstance leads to the thought, leads to the feeling, leads to the action, leads to the result.
Yeah.
That is a mechanism called the self-coaching model that psychologists teach. And you can lay on top of that some ideas of neuro-linguistic programming, which is when you get so first of all, the moral of that story is, and what you'll learn in the book is, if you want to have great results, it all starts with your thought.
Sure.
Okay. Because if you have a great thought, then you have a great feeling and everything else follows after that. However, there's something that you should recognize, is that the difference between the observation of the circumstance through your senses and the thought, there are filters. Okay, so those filters are based off of your life experience. They're based off of your culture, your background, your education, your relationships. And so you and I can have a conversation, and I may say one thing, and you may interpret it as another based off of those filters. And so then it gets into, okay, so now, well, if I say to Nick, I love that jacket that you have on. And you hear me say, Nick, I hate yellow jacket bumblebees, right? Not even, just making stuff up here.
Right.
Well, you're distorting what I'm saying. But here's the thing. In NLP, it suggests that I'm responsible for that, not you, from my perspective. So there's presuppositions in the normal linguistic program, one of which is called communication is the response that you get. So now, how could I possibly be responsible for Nick's inability to hear something really simple, that you have a nice jacket, right?
Right.
Well, when you elevate your responsibility to that level, now you position yourself so that whatever the response is, if it's not what I want, I gotta take a step back, and I have to reassess, and I have to then take another shot at it. And now I'm going to be responsible to say, well, that's on me, my communications not being effective. Nick, I really want to talk to you a little bit more about your jacket. Can I see that for a second? Can I hold that for a second? Look at this jacket. This is a beautiful jacket. Wouldn't you agree? Right.
I
So
do.
so I'm taking on extra responsibility to be able to then say, okay, I'm responsible for the outcome. So once you understand that you have ultimate responsibility in life, your level of success will elevate exponentially. And that's how I use some of neurolinguistic programming. What you're going to learn when you read the book is, how can you take specific tools, specific techniques, and get more out of life. And so that's what NLP is and how we use it in the book.
Awesome. I'm going to keep rolling here. CPI communication model: building rapport, asking adept questions, and actively listening. Let's talk about this. I think it's a great model. It kind of piggybacks on NLP and responsibility for communication. Let's talk about how you go through that process when you're meeting someone for the first time, or you're engaging with them again in over time in your relationship.
Let's expand on what the CPI communication model is. So CPI stands for consistent, predictable income.
Yeah.
The communication model, as Nick mentioned, is be in rapport, ask adept questions, actively listen. So let's take a look, first of all, what is rapport? So rapport is a connection. We are spiritual beings manifested in this human condition. And when our spirits connect with each other, that is a high level of rapport,
Sure.
a high level of connectivity. So when you're communicating, when you're influencing, the first step is to pay attention to the other person and make certain that you are connecting with them energetically. When you recognize that you are, and the way that you can recognize that you are is in the third step of the actively listening. We'll get there in a second. So once you recognize that you are in rapport, and you can feel it when you're in rapport, by the way, like you can feel that in the inside of your body, that deep connection. The second step is to ask adept questions. So an adept question is a question that's designed to be able to uncover the true truth, right? Like really, I'll give you an example. As a real estate agent for almost 20 years, I may have somebody that wants to buy a home, and say it's a single gentleman, and that single gentleman comes to me and he says, Dan, I want to buy a 1-bedroom, condo. And I'm like, but you can afford a, 5-bedroom house, why would you want to do that?
Right.
But if I dig deep and I find out he's recently divorced, I find out he doesn't want to be, he wants to be a dad to his daughter, and his dad abandoned him. He doesn't want to be a deadbeat. Now I've really, really got to a deep level of what his motivation is, which is very different than that surface level, I just want a home.
Right.
All right. So step one is to be in rapport. Step two is to ask adept questions. And then the final step is to actively listen. So I mentioned that previously. When you're in rapport, And when you're communicating effectively with somebody and you're able to actively listen to them, you're paying attention to their energy. You're paying attention to their body. You're paying attention to the way that they are explaining something or communicating something. And I've been in situations before where there's a husband and wife. You say to the husband, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" He says yes, and you say to the wife, "You want to buy this?" She says, yes." Right? Like you
Yeah,
heard the word yes, but one was a yes and one wasn't. And that's where you're actively listening to when you catch that, then you want to reset and make sure that you're aligned with the client or the consumer.
I love it. So there was this one section in that part too that just really jumped out at me, and I wrote it down here. Fear is an illusion. Momentum is everything. Lead gen is a must. Consistency beats talent. I think those are all amazing things. You could replace fear with anxiety, doubt with, doubt. Those are all things that we make up in our head about the future that is not here yet and may never come in that way. Let's talk about that. So fear is an illusion. Momentum is everything. Lead gen is a must. Consistency beats talent.
I'm going to say of those, the consistency is the one that will always win.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you look, I had one of my gym trainers asked me one day, said, "Dan, you're successful in sales and what you do. What's your key to success?" I just looked at him. I said, "You want to know the truth?" He's like, "Yeah." And we're in between, reps. I said, "I go to work every day."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" Like, no, I can't be that simple. I'm like, "It is. I go to work every day and I lead generate every single day, 1 to 3 hours a day. I'm a salesperson. I
Yeah.
only spend 1 to 3 hours a day doing my craft, which is sales. The rest of my day, I'm going on appointments or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So, of those things that we just mentioned there, consistency is is what's going to create it's habits, right? If you are a really fit guy or woman, it's not because, well, maybe you were born that way, right? But more likely you put a little bit of time and effort into it, and
Yeah.
your habits will show, wow, this guy, he pays attention to his exercise and his food and all that.
Absolutely. I've got a story that kind of fits into that. And it's interesting. The consistency piece was the one that means the most to you.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, by the way. Um, I remember there's a woman who was like the rookie of the year at my office. This is like 15 years ago. And she went on to create one of the most successful boutique brokerages. And she had a ton of people working for her. They're all super productive. She's making probably over $2 million a year net. And I asked her, I said, "What is your secret? What would you say is why you're successful?" And she said, "Well, Nick, it's people ask me that all the time and no one believes me, but from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., I only work on real estate. I
Yeah.
don't do chores. I don't do personal things. I don't read the news. I don't scroll social media. I only work on real estate from 8 to 5. I just treat it like a regular job. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, I'm working on real estate. And after that, I shut it down and I go pick up my kids and I make dinner and we spend time together and we have fun. And I know her pretty well. I can honestly say, like, at 5 o'clock, she goes home and picks up the kids and they have fun. And, she's a mom at that point and a wife and a daughter of her parents who live on their farm. And I was just shocked. I'm like, man, it's that easy. But then you look at people that aren't succeeding and how many of them are working from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday on their craft. Like you said, really, we're lucky enough in this business that if you could do it for 2 or 3 hours a day, you're in the top 1% of 1%, probably.
Yeah.
Um,
And don't misunderstand what I mean when I say 1 to 3 hours a day. That's 1 to 3 hours a day of that high priority activity.
yeah,
It doesn't mean that I'm only working 1 to 3 hours a day. It means I'm working 1 to 3 hours a day on my highest priority in my sales business, which is finding new business.
absolutely. Yeah. You spend that time focused on growing the business and growing your
Yeah.
clientele, and then you spend the rest of the day taking care of them, making sure that
Yeah.
you're getting the results they're hiring you for and delivering on your promise. So no, that's fantastic. You mentioned this as a piggyback on this, and I believe you, but I want to hear you explain this. Follow up is more important than lead gen. So if I don't do any lead gen, I have no one to follow up with. So, but I've also seen this happen, and my biggest, if I could go back in time and change something, is I was great at lead gen and I didn't consistently follow up with everyone that I met. So I spent all this time and energy meeting the people, putting them in the database and reaching out to them. But if I didn't feel like there was more of an immediate need, they didn't get consistent focus over time. And it could have been easy to do that in hindsight. So follow up is more important than lead gen. Tell me what you mean.
Well, follow up is more important than lead gen for those that don't follow up. And lead gen is more important than follow up for those that don't lead gen. You are right. Lead gen is the first step.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you that the most overlooked step is the lead follow up. That's where the opportunity is lost.
Yeah.
And I will follow up with somebody 5-6 years. It's no problem. I'll follow up with them every 90 days. And that goes back into that 1 to 3 hours a day of doing my lead generation. I mean, they're in my database.
Right.
And I'm, some weeks I may get too busy. I say, okay, I'll give that guy a call next week or whatever the case may be. But I'm making a conscious effort to say, I'm going to follow up with this person until they have a need. If they raise their hand and they say, I'm going to do something for the future, I'm going to make sure that when that future happens, that I'm the guy that they're going to choose to do that with. And I can't tell you how often I get people that will hire me that I met 3 years ago. I mean, it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's just, if I didn't have that consistent follow up, I would have missed that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for anyone listening, the higher the ticket price, the more important the sale, the longer you have to invest with people. I would tell my agents, look, we're not selling cell phones at the mall. This is not an impulse buy kind of thing. People do this probably, if they do it at all, they do it every 10 to 12 years. And maybe if they're an investor, they're every couple years. And unless it's their business, they're maybe doing it a couple times a year. So it's still, I mean, it's important to realize you might communicate with someone for 10, 12 years before they actually need you.
Well, that's a long time. And most of us don't want to sit there and think about it. But here's the thing. I'll give you a little tool, and I talk about this in the book, a little cheat code. So what I learned is I don't judge myself on the results. I judge myself on the activity.
Yeah.
And at the end of a day, I know if I had a successful day or not is if I did my lead generation activity.
Yeah.
If I made $40,000 a day and I did no lead generation activity, I don't consider I worked. And that's a possibility. I've had days like that before, gratefully, right? And I'm grateful for that, but I'm still understanding that I'm not working today. I'm just cashing the check for the work that I previously did.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I stopped long ago judging myself on the outcome. Because that's what a lot of us do. We want to compare, to, other people or whatever the case may be. That goes back into that thing that, is whispering in your head, not good enough, right? That's a basis of that demon. And so understanding that we can separate that and create success is something I think to consider.
Okay. I love it. All right. Part 3, build an organization. I'm curious why you call it build an organization and not a team. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. And this is something that I can say, I know you've hired and trained a lot more people than me, but I've done enough of it to know that I agree with you here. When you're hiring people, finding people that are coachable and learning based is the key thing. Because if someone is coachable and learning based and they've got the motivation, there really isn't anything they can't figure out and do, right? Human beings have the capacity to learn almost anything. And what gets in the way is people that don't want to seem silly. They don't want to, they think if they hear no one time, their life's over. This is not an easy job for a lot of people. It's a great fit for some people. It's a hard job. Yeah. And, if it's the right fit, it's a fantastic opportunity. But I've seen people with very different personality types succeed in this industry. But I do agree with you. I don't know anyone who wasn't coachable or learning based that succeeded.
Yeah. I'll add some other qualities on there. So in the book, I give an acronym called SCARLET.
Yeah.
SCARL and then a little E-T. And so the S stands for self-starter. The C stands for competitive. The A stands for assertive. The R stands for relationship base. The LE stands for learning. And the T stands for team player.
Yeah.
And so those are the behavior characteristics that I look for in a team member and somebody to join my organization. And so there was really no thought between calling it organization or team, because you asked that. I don't know. It was just probably just a nuance of words that we use. So I think a team can be an organization. I think an organization can be a team. I think, and I go through in the book, I talk the difference between an individual, a group, and a team.
Yeah.
And when you are one person, you can be pretty productive. When you put together some people into a group, you're going to at first be less productive.
Right.
But when you get that group of people working together as a team, that's where you get the most production possible.
Yeah.
And so it's really, there's so many vital things. I would say one of the worst hiring mistakes I've made more than once in my career was hiring the all-star that was not a team player.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like I had to learn that more than once.
Yeah.
And that it's not, it doesn't work. You can't have an all-star. I mean, I guess if it's Michael Jordan, maybe, you go back to Tom Brady, maybe, right? But even Tom Brady, his team sucked. And they, look how many Super Bowls they won with average teams. I mean, they had good players, but it wasn't, it was great coaching and a great quarterback, and that's what made it.
Yeah. Now, teach to sell fits perfectly in finding coachable and learning-based people. Give me, if I'm looking to grow my organization, what are some ways you find these people organically? Is it teaching courses? Is it helping to coach people? How do you connect with these people, and kind of what do you do to find organically, if you're, say, you've got 20 people that raise their hand, to find the one or two that you want to be in business with?
Well, that's so basically you're asking, where do you attract people?
Yeah,
Okay. And before you hire, you want to decide that you're not going to settle for mediocrity.
sure.
All right. That's one of the pre-decisions compasses in the book. You're going to commit to attracting, developing, and retaining high caliber people who align with your visions and values. Now, here's the piece that many people who are hiring miss completely. When you're hiring, it starts with, who are you? What do you value? What do you believe? How do you like to be treated? Because if you get that right, then you're able to, at the very least, have people within your organization that align with your values. Then the only thing that's left is, how do I get somebody in the organization that now has the skill to do whatever it is that they're supposed to be performing?
Right.
And so, but it starts with, who am I? And I don't even know if people teach it. I don't hear that taught anywhere. I don't know if that was through my own development or where I learned that. But what I discovered was that when I'm hiring somebody else, I have to first understand who I am, what my needs are, how can I help that person? Then it gets into, okay, what's the record of success? What have they done in the past? Do we align on our values? And then maybe I got a 50% shot of getting it right. Now, I say 50% shot of getting it right because when I hire somebody, they have a 90-day trial period. If they're with me on day 91, they'll be with me for the next 6 to 8 years,
Right.
at least. But they have a 50% chance of getting to day 91.
Right.
And I think that that's a critical thing to consider as well, because far too many people do is they hire somebody and they keep them in there forever, and they're not the right person.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to think of it this way too. I mean, it might sound selfish that you don't want to have, someone that isn't great working with you because maybe they need a job, but it's not going to be a good fit for them either. And you're
Well, they'll be
taking time
miserable.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll
And you're
be
taking
miserable.
time away from them. They're in a situation where they're not succeeding, which, like you said, that's why you would quit something, is if you're not enjoying it or it's not working. And I would include, you know, things that are worth giving up on are, relationships that are toxic or that aren't working. Sometimes trying to make it work or fix it or make it a success is just a recipe for dragging it out and being miserable for longer for both of you. So,
Yeah.
it's
Let me,
interesting. I haven't heard, and I read a lot of books, and I've gone, I'm very involved with this space, and
sure.
I haven't heard someone describe the coaching, hiring, organizational growing thing as, make sure you know who you are first.
Yeah.
I've heard of, what are the things you don't want to do, so you find someone that can do those tasks. I think some companies have their mission statement or their value statement, that's different than the personality and the type of leader. I think, as close as I got it, it was just, I want to put my energy into people that want to grow and be better. And I don't want to invest in mediocrity, because I've had that happen where people, and I don't even want to say they were mediocre. They just had a lower level of ambition and motivation than I wanted. And I felt like I wanted more for them than they wanted for themselves. And so then that creates a tension and a friction, which creates problems, because if I'm building a team and I want everyone to make $400,000 a year, and I've got a bunch of people that are happy at 100, well, we've got a lot of untouched capacity. We've got a whole lot of work that still needs to be done, because I was counting on each person being able to do and wanting to do more than that. And if that's not the case, then, well, now you've got a problem where now you need way more people. I'd much rather have less people that want to do big things than a bunch of people that want to do little things. I think that's a much more difficult thing to run. So
I say every role in my business should be held by somebody as a 9 out of a 10.
yeah.
And does that mean that we would hire a 7 or 8 out of 10? We would, but I'd rather hire a 9 out of 10. It's easier to get from 9 to 9 than it is to get from 7 to 9.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be done, but I certainly am not going to hire a 4.
Yeah.
That's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. All right, part 4, lead your people. I really love this. I really think that your thoughts on these sections are really, really different than what people have read in other books. Meet your people where they are and guide them for where they want to go. I actually wrote that down wrong the first time I did it. I said, meet people where they are and guide them to where you want them to go. Because I was thinking kind of traditional, like business management. So, and then the next piece I wrote down is the main job is to teach your people how to get what they want, or the main job is to teach your people how to think to get what they want. And you mentioned this earlier at the very beginning, where you start with mindset. And, there's the famous Henry Ford quote, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So meet your people where they are and guide them where they want to go. Talk about that. That's a really different way of looking at this.
Well, we go back into that alignment. That's the exact reason why, our previous conversation about knowing yourself is so vital. Because when you know yourself, and then when you align with other people that are looking for the same outcome in life, now you stop having to focus on yourself, and now you can start focusing on that other person. Okay. Because it goes back into like your example, Nick, of, well, I'd rather have 2 people, 3 people, 4 people that want to make $400,000 than 10 people that want to make $100,000.
Right.
Okay. So now, if that's aligned with me, aligned with my vision, I'm only looking for A players. I'm only looking for people who want to make $400,000 a year. That's it. I don't want to work with people who want to make $100,000 a year. And then I attract those people to me. Now I don't have to ever worry about myself ever again. Now it's, how do I serve you so you reach your goals?
Right.
Because as a byproduct of that, I'm going to reach my goals. Okay. And the very definition of leadership, you said it, but I'll say it again. My definition of leadership and my definition of teach to sell is to teach somebody how to think so that they can get what they want. All right. Now, if you think about that as a leader, that's very different than sometimes the way we perceive leadership is like being the boss, like telling other people what to do. It's like, no, that doesn't work. It may work for a second, temporarily, right? But if you really want to be a leader, you really want to make an impact in the world, first of all, you got to, again, align yourself with people that have shared goals, then set the expectations of the relationship, make sure that you agree on it, then make sure that you give them every tool that they need to succeed, and then get the hell out the way. And now my job is to help you instead of helping me.
Yeah, I love it. All right, part 5, the journey. And this kind of comes back full circle to the beginning and what we're just talking about. You are good enough. Tell me why this is important to you. Like, why is this is and part 5 is basically just that statement. And it's very brief and it's very focused.
Yeah.
Why was that the piece you wanted to make sure that everyone left with from this book that I'm sure you spent a lot of hours and days working on?
Yeah, years. So part 5 is the journey to teach to sell, is embracing the truth that you are good enough. Throughout my career, I've had victories, I've had setbacks, I've planned, I've taken action, I've adjusted course, and at times, every once in a while, I hit the mark.
Yeah.
But ultimately, throughout my journey, what I recognized and what I realized was that the thing that I see that holds people back, the thing that from time to time has held me back, is that truth of that whisper in your ear that you're not good enough. And if you're frustrated with with your place in your life or your business, and you want to achieve more, you want to be able to have happiness, you first have to sit there and say, well, you know what? I'm God's gift. I am, I am the chosen one. All right. And anybody that's listening to this, right, you may sit there and say, oh my goodness, Dan just said he's the chosen one, right? No, you're the chosen one. We are all the chosen one,
Yeah.
right? You look at the infinite odds against us even being alive, right? And we don't know what's well beyond this planet, right? But you just look at the odds of you listening, of you even being alive to listen to this are almost infinite.
Yeah.
And so once you recognize that, it's like, okay, well, I'm the chosen one. So now, am I good enough? And that's a choice that you get to make. I say that you are good enough, and I say that this book will help you to be able to discover the journey that you can, live a life without struggle, and that you can choose to understand the lessons that matter. And so some of the lessons that matter that I go through in the book is understanding your priorities, is choosing to live a life with meaning, is being able to develop and learn and grow, is understanding what your value is, being committed, not attached to the outcome, and paying attention to the right people, supplementing your weaknesses, and understanding that gratitude and negativity cannot coexist.
Yeah.
And so it goes back into what we began with, is saying, well, why do you start the journey with belief? And why do you end the journey with you're good enough? It's like bookends on a journey when the reader goes through the book to understand and say, wait, first of all, I got to believe in myself. Now I'm going to give all this plan step by step on how to build a business and be successful and have no broke months, have consistent, predictable income. Then I got to remind myself I am worthy to do this. And when you have those tools, your destiny, your outcome, it's already predetermined. You're going to have the success that you desire.
I love it. That's a great thing to leave on. Um, so I think I did a good job reading this book and taking notes, and I really enjoyed it. And I think people are going to get so much out of it. Where can they find your book, Dan?
www.teachtosellbook.com. That's teachtosellbook.com. And when you order the book, it's being published by Simon & Schuster early 2026. But if you get on the pre-order right now, I got a bunch of electronic swag, including $10,000 of free training. Well, it's free for the cost of a $20 book. So it's $20 for $10,000 of training that goes through the four pillars of what we discussed today, of video training and extra diagrams, and it took us years to put that together. And I am committed that I help 1 million business owners, entrepreneurs, and salespeople to never have to worry about having a broke month again, and to know that they have consistent, predictable income, which is why I offer that as a bonus. We used to charge $10,000 for it. Now we give it away as a bonus to the book, because I am committed to helping business owners achieve consistent, predictable income.
Awesome, Dan. This is so great talking to you. I'm so glad I got to interview you about your book. We've known each other a long time. I'm super proud of you for putting in the work to do this. I know you have a lot on your plate, and I know how hard it is to do this. So I know this is going to inspire and help a lot of people. And a good book lasts forever. It's a really kind of magical thing. So congrats. I can't wait to have that get a copy when that comes out early next year. And thanks for letting me interview you about your book. I really enjoyed it.
Nick, 10-year anniversary of the Golden Handoff. Where can somebody get that?
So it's on Amazon. It's out now. So and if you want free resources from the book, there's no gimmick. You just put your email in at goldenhandoff.com. There's a bunch of resources there. And if you sign up, you get copies of all the scripts, dialogues, contracts, letters that are in the book. The big new thing in the new edition. So the Golden Handoff was published 10 years ago, October 1st. So like just a couple weeks ago, 10 years anniversary, which is super exciting. You never dreamed, I'd write a book and then 10 years goes by. And it's helped tens of thousands of people, which it's an amazing thing to get emails, as I'm sure you do, Dan. Like, thank you so much for this. It helped me solve this problem. The biggest hurdle I had in buying businesses from agents who were retiring or moving or getting out of the real estate business was they said that they weren't ready yet. I'm going to do a couple more years. I'm going to work a little bit here and there. And I didn't have a plan for them. And the new edition of the book, the second edition, has a plan for them. It's called a partial handoff, and it allows people to phase out, to train someone to take over, or to work part-time on the clients they want, the properties they want, when they want to work, and partner with someone who wants to grow a business to take care of everything else. It's super powerful. It's going to help so many more people. That's why I went back and rewrote the book and added a whole new section, because I've been teaching it for years, and I wish I had implemented it earlier. And so I'm really glad that the second edition just came out a couple months ago. So it's the blue and white cover on at goldenhandoff.com. There's a link right to Amazon. So that's the best way to find it.
Nick, thank you for taking your time to interview me and for sharing with us about the Golden Handoff. Audience, thank you for your time. And until next time, have the best day of your life. Be grateful, make good choices, go help somebody, and go get Teach to Sell at www.teachtosellbook.com. And then get the Golden Handoff on Amazon. Just type in Golden Handoff. You'll find it. God bless you guys. See you. Hey there, No Broke Months listener. I've got some exciting news. We just passed 375,000 downloads for the No Broke Months podcast, and I could not have done it without you. I am beyond grateful for every single listener who tunes in daily, takes action, and shares this journey with me. Now, with you and let's take it a step further. If this podcast has helped you, imagine what it could do for another salesperson who might be struggling. Share the show with them. Let them know there's a way to create consistent and predictable income, because no salesperson should ever have another broke month again. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a favorable review. Your support helps us reach even more salespeople who need this. Until the next episode, have the best day of your life. Be grateful, make good choices, go help someone, and share the show with a friend. God bless you. All right.